theme for the month is the theater of your mind, the theater of your mind. How many of you remember Jack Nicholson sitting in that witness stand, his medals gleaming? He's really feeling inconvenienced that he even has to be there, glaring at Tom Hanks, who plays Lieutenant Weinberg, Nicholson playing a Marine Colonel, Nathan Jessup. And Jack Nicholson has just asked him a question to tell the truth. And we remember Tom Cruise has asked him to tell the truth. And we remember Jack Nicholson looking at him and says, "You want the truth? You can't handle the truth." You remember that? We remember movie lines like that. We remember "They call me Mr. Tibbs." Mr. Tibbs. Show me the money. Show me the money. Show me the money. We're going to make them the offer they can't refuse. What are some other ones you can think of? Antiana. We can think even from musicals going, "Ease on down." Oh, yes. There's no business like show business. We remember these lines. We remember the lines because they're important. We remember them because they take a thought and they crystallize a thought, and lines become important. So we understand this. We understand these things. And in the context of what we are talking about this month, the theater of the mind, words, because lines are nothing but words, a collection of words. Words are important. In our teaching, words are important. And it's not just words in and of themselves, but more importantly, it's the words that we say to ourselves. Because the things that we say to ourselves, the self-conversation, in my coaching business, I have a tagline, which is, "Talking to yourself is fine. Just know what to say." And in our understanding of that is what we say to ourselves, because what we say to ourselves soon becomes a reflection of what we have happen outwardly. Our understanding is that our thoughts create our reality, right? We say that. We say, change your thinking, change your life. So our thoughts have a correlation with what we experience in life, but it's what we say on the inside, is our inner conversations, because a whole lot of times, and I will say me, you all are beyond this, but me. You ask me how I'm doing, and there may be a day that I'm not necessarily, and I'll say, "I'm fine. Everything's going great. All's good. Too blessed to be stressed." All of those things. Now, I know y'all don't do that, but it's important because we can say outwardly things because we think it will help us to appear better, but the real important conversation is what's going on inside of us. And so we have to get that, we have to understand it. So the title of this message is Line, because what happens is, if you've ever been to a rehearsal or been in a play or a movie or anything like that, what happens is that the actors and actresses, they work to remember their lines. They work to remember the script so they will know where to go. And then there's a point at which they get what they call off book, which means they no longer consult the script, but they attempt to do it from memory. But every now and then, as they are in rehearsal and moving through it, they will forget a part. And so they will call out line. And then there's a person whose responsibility it is that will answer and give them the line that they need, because words are important. And it's important, the words that we say, the words that we understand, the words that are a part of what we do in our daily lives. And if we wish to see things, if we wish to have things, as Jack and Cornelia Addington like to talk about, out picture, then we have to get a hold of our inner conversation. We have to observe the stuff that we say to ourselves, because we are not our thoughts. Let me say that again. We are not our thoughts. Maybe I'll say that a third time. We are not our thoughts. You are not your thoughts. You are thinking your thoughts. But so happens so often is we get caught up in thinking that we are our thoughts. We have been led to believe that, and we get hypnotized into that belief. But we can become the observer of our thoughts. And when we become the observer of our thoughts, then it allows us to be able to change those thoughts and to change the outcomes of our thoughts. Genevieve Berin, who wrote the classic Your Invisible Power, she was a student of Thomas Troward, and she wrote about it all of the time, and she talked about it all of the time. And she wrote about moving us into the second part of what we're talking about, the fact that once we begin to be the observer of our thoughts, the observer of our conversation, our internal conversation, then we can begin the next step, which is to begin to see those things that we wish to have express and to manifest in our lives. We begin to see them. She calls it the law of visualization. And we begin to see those things because, again, as I mentioned last week, everything is created twice. It's created in our minds, and then it comes into the physical world. The chairs that you're sitting on, this building, all of those things were ideas in someone's mind before they ever showed up in the physical world. So she says that we can visualize or see things, and we take the opportunity to see them, and as we see them, as we imagine them, as we paint the mental picture in our minds, as we use in the theater of our mind, seeing ourselves from the perspective of looking out and seeing things unfold, that as we begin to do those things, as we can become consistent about them, they begin to happen for us. So it's important that we understand that we have this ability, we have this power to visualize, to see. And the thing of it is that these days, and she wrote way back in 1921, when a lot of this was considered really kind of strange. And some people now, you tell them, they ask you what you're doing. Well, I'm visualizing my day. I'm visualizing my success. I'm visualizing my health. I'm visualizing my ideal partner. I'm visualizing all those things. And they will look at you and they will, okay. They start to move away. But what we do know is that even today, world-class athletes, almost every one of them now, when you see a part of their training regimen, they will spend time watching themselves from the perspective of being there and successfully putting the ball in the basket or running the distance or making the hurdle or whatever it might be. They spend time doing that. They have sports psychologists that work with them to do that. They have coaches that help them to do all of those things. These ideas are something that has taken root in many aspects of society. You see some of the things, you look at a person like Bill Gates, who has taken the time and the opportunity to schedule in his day where he sits and all he does is imagine things that could be. And he spends that. And when we talk about ancient wisdom, even our ancestors talked about the fact of seeing things prior to it coming into existence. So this is not something that's really new. This is something that we know, something that many of us do. But I'm here just to remind you about it today. But Genevieve Berin, in her book, Your Invisible Power, helps us also to understand something else. And she says that a lot of people think that to do these things means that somehow you're trying to then cause nature to bend in such a way that it wasn't able to do it. She says that there's a better way of looking at this. And that is the fact that we don't know everything. And there are aspects of nature, aspects of the way that the universe is set up that we continue to discover. Now remember, back in 1921, she is writing and she is talking about the example of what she called the flying machine, which we know today is the airplane. And she said that in the beginning, in year one, there was not an airplane. There was not the ability necessarily with people to create one. So they would look at it and they would say that it was impossible. possible. But as time advanced, and as people started learning more and more about this universe that we live in, they began to fashion things and discover things, and really discover is a good way to think about it, because it's already done in the mind of God, as we say. But to understand how to work within these things. So she went on to say how the first few people who talked about being able to get in the machine and fly through the air in the way that we do now in those flying machines, they failed. They failed. They tried. They failed. They had people laugh at them. They were called crazy. They had all of these things that happened because those things were not successful. But they kept thinking about the fact that there was something here. There was something that will make this ability possible one day. And she goes on to talk about these two brothers that were from the town, my hometown, the town I grew up in, called the Wright brothers, and how they initially started working at that, and they were not seeing success. But she said that one brother would constantly say to the other brother, every time their experiment failed and all of that, he would say, "That's okay, brother, because," and listen to this, "I see myself flying through the air in this machine, and it's doing it easily and steadily." Listen to that again. I see myself flying through the air in this machine, easily and steadily. He understood that if the result that he wanted to have was ultimately to be able to fly in a machine, those flying machines that we travel in, that he had to be able to see it. That he was able to see that, and they were able to see that. And despite the failures that they had at one point, they were continuing to see it for themselves, and ultimately it happened. And Trower, the teacher for Genevieve Marin, talks about all the time the fact that principle is not bound by precedent, or again, the idea that just because something failed in the past doesn't mean that it always has to. So they kept at it, and they kept at it. And today, most of us in here, sometime or another, have been on an airplane, and we've flown. And the fact of it is that distances have shortened, the things because of that. There are things now today that we wouldn't even have imagined before, but somebody imagined it. Many of you that are sitting here can think about the fact, and maybe not really realize it, but what we carry in our hands right now, that a room much larger than this was required to hold the first computers, and we have more power in our hands today than that machine that took up this entire space and beyond, took up an entire building. It's because of the capacity that is available to us to imagine, to dream, to visualize, to play in the theater of our minds. And from our perspective, the way that we are able to do this is, as Wayne Dyer in his book Wishes Fulfilled talks about, and he talks about from the context of one of my heroes, Neville, is the fact that we have the I am consciousness that we are a part of, that expresses as us. You remember the story where Moses on the backside of Mount Horeb, and he was there tending to sheep, and he saw this bush that was burning, and the bush wasn't being burnt up, it just continued to burn. I think about that, the flame of eternal truth, that understanding from a metaphysical point, that it was burning, it was declaring itself to be something unusual, and he walks up and he hears, "Take your shoes off, because the ground on which you're standing is holy ground." And then he begins to have this conversation, and he is told, "You've got to go and to get my people," and all of that. And when he asks, "What is your name?" and the name that comes forth is I am. The I am consciousness. Some people like to call it the name of God. I really like to think of it as it's about the creative energy or the creative aspect of the universe that is you. And it is me. It is I am. And it is a part of us. And whenever we start talking about I am, we are careful about what we say after I am. Because a lot of us say, I am tired. I am disappointed. I am frightened. And I would encourage you to try a different tact. I am energetic. I am courageous even in the face of stuff that otherwise would make me afraid. I am confident. I am knowledgeable. I am, because the creative energy of the universe, when we combine those things, when we allow those things to connect with us and we connect to it, things begin to happen. We begin to see those things, and even before they come into being, even before they come into manifestation, because we have started and we continue to work with the presence and power that is I am, that is you, that is me, things happen, things come forth, things manifest. All of what we start to see and experience and have happen in our lives, it comes forth because we understand that in the theater of our minds, we can get a hold of these things. We can begin practicing it and seeing it. And it's not happening right now, but I'm continuing to see it. It hasn't happened yet, but I continue to see it. I hold on to it. I understand that it is there. It is possible. And then I welcome it and allow it to be in my mind. Helen Malacote wrote the poem. I'm paraphrasing it. But she says, I was regretting the past and fearing the future. At that point, Spirit spoke and said, my name is I am. I stopped and I listened. The voice went on to say that if you are regretting the past and its mistakes, don't look for me. I'm not there, because my name is not I was. It is I am. If you're fearing the future with its anxieties and its unknown, don't look for me there, because my name is not I will be. My name is I am. But if you look for me in the present, I am here, because my name is I am. And that's your name too. And so it is.
knowing that there is only one power and one presence in the universe, and that is God. And as each of us embodies all that we have learned today, we take it in, we make it our own, and we simply live from those very truths. We give thanks for the music, the centering moment, the affirmative reading, the lesson, and just the energy that each and every person has brought into the space and into this place today. And moving forward, knowing that yes, there are conversations that we have with ourselves. Yes, those conversations are important. Because the words that I say to myself are the words that I live. The lines that I say, whether it's going to be easy, it's going to be hard, it's going to be terrible, it's going to be great. Those are the words that shape my reality. But I know that I can become the observer, that I can take a step back and say, you know what? I'm going to make a change. And I'm going to visualize something great, something grand, something easy. Great health, great peace, great prosperity, whatever it is. And I'm no longer going to live in the land of coulda, woulda, shoulda. No longer going to live in what was behind me. No longer going to live what's in front of me. Now I live in the land of I am. Because it is in this moment that everything happens. Knowing that I am. Releasing all, letting go, letting go, and so